back to a new installment of The Training Edge with Dave and Stu. We have a special guest today that we will get to in one moment. I am your host, David Spear, along with my co-host, Stu Burton. And we bring to you this podcast every week to talk about issues around health, fitness, wellness, bodybuilding, strength training, anything having to do with making us better, improving our performance, and overall improving our health and lifestyle. So we've been talking, Stu, the last few weeks more about training and bodybuilding, and even the past 2 weeks we talked about stress and the psychology related to strength training, and how improved performance really helps us cope, and also changes our psyche, the way we think about ourselves, the way we kind of view ourselves. But today we're going to step back a little bit. Today we're going to talk more specifically about posture, about ergonomics, proper ways of sitting and standing, and also kind of easy things that we can do at home, especially now that, we're quarantined and we don't have access to the things that we normally do. Very easy things that we can do to improve ourselves in that regard. And that can go a long way to improving our health.
Right. I'm very happy for this episode because this is one of the things. This is like the cornerstone of strength and longevity. It is that posture. I used to hear my mom yell at me and say, ease yourself into the couch. Just don't flop down into the couch. These type of things. You weigh how we sit today. And I would tell a lot of my clients, just watching the way how they do basic things, you get to see why certain issues are there, in the body. So if we can address these things and make different changes and just, learn a little bit, they go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. So let us bring our guest in. This is Amy Kraft, and Amy comes to us from Arizona. And it's interesting, Amy's background is very interesting. Her background is in finance. So she was a Wall Streeter. And I guess that was in the 90s, Amy?
It was in the 80s and the 90s.
Whoa.
80s and 90s. And
Pioneer.
I'll let her tell her story, but now she's got decades of experience working with, people who have back issues, also, personal training and issues related to fitness as well. So Amy, give us a little bit more of your background and where you're coming from.
Well, I as you introduced me, my background is Wall Street. I was a senior vice president at a top financial firm, and I always loved fitness, athletics. I was an avid tennis player, swimmer, and we play pickleball on weekends, and I swim every day about a mile or so, and as well as do what I call postural alignment fitness. So this series that you're doing is absolutely perfect, because people simply define posture as the position one holds their body sitting or standing. And what I would add is also lying, walking, and working to this definition. Because if you have good posture for your particular anatomy, it reduces pain, it decreases injury, it diminishes stress on muscles and joints, it will improve respiration, circulation, digestion, flexibility and strength, as well as support good sleep patterns.
Right.
So this is very, very important, our postural alignment.
Yeah.
That's great.
I again, it's something that I stress a lot. And when you're dealing with like strength training, posture, and even some of the athletes that I deal with as well. I was a boxer, was involved in a lot of different sports, gymnastics, weightlifting, boxing, bodybuilding, And you know, each sport requires a particular type of posture. So one of the things we always tell athletes that we work with at my facility is, you know, you have to be able to posture up, but you need to be able to come out of that posture as well. We see with a lot of fighters, we see a lot of anterior rotation, right? So with that anterior rotation, there's some forward, some amount of a breakdown in that upper thoracic region of the back, right? The trapezius
Right.
area. So, you know, they embody the sport so much that they forget that you don't want to, you don't need to sit in that position all the time. You know,
Absolutely.
it's very important to understand that you want to posture up, but you want to also be able to get out. And then in weight training and things like this, just having the proper alignment to the vertebrae allows us to lift maximum loads in vertical loaded positions. So you know, it's the bedrock, like I said, and what you do is amazing work. That's something that's very, very important.
Well, I feel that that posturing up is coming back to that neutral
Right,
position.
right,
And the neutral position is supporting from the feet right through up to the top of the head. So I
correct.
always start with the feet, and because I feel that that really embodies hip, spine, knees, particularly the neck, the heart,
Yeah,
and the head.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the kinetic chain. So
yeah,
Yep,
often,
yep,
right? So
yeah.
often, you know, you'll have somebody who's complaining of right shoulder pain, and
Right.
meanwhile, it's probably emanating from something that's going on either
Mm.
in their lower extremities or in their feet, which is causing an overcompensation on one side, and then that's causing them to actually utilize that muscle more,
Right,
and then, you know, and then there
right,
could be
yeah,
injuries.
that right shoulder could be the turning out of their left foot.
right,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right,
So,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've gotten a lot of questions, right, about roughly, you know, about posture, about a little bit about back pain and things like that. And we've gotten questions that have been written in, but we've also we have some prepared questions. So I'll start with these questions, and this is kind of how the discussion will go. And if we get some people who write in, because we are on YouTube Live right now, believe it or not, if we get some people who write in, we'll take those questions as well. Um, my question has to do with our current situation, which is quarantine. So, as I was mentioning before at the beginning of the show, people don't have access to what they were using before, namely, you know, a gym or an area to exercise or whatever that may be. And you know, I did a little bit of research, and I'm finding that there's more complaints of low back pain now that we're in quarantine. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and why that might be. Is it just because we're at home and we're, you know, we're not necessarily practicing good mechanics, or, you know, what do you think?
I think that you not only look at the physical body, but we have to look at the emotional body, the mental body.
Mm.
So we're quarantined at home, and there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of emotion, mental fatigue that happens. So instead of knowing that we have to uh, engage our abs, we're rounding our back because we feel emotionally such heavy stress.
Mm.
And we're not sitting properly, we're not standing properly, we're obviously not walking properly,
Mm.
and our work is mostly sitting
Mm.
for the
Right,
most part. So
right.
when we're sitting, we could be sitting in a chair where our knees are higher than our hips. And if
Hmm.
our knees are higher than our hips, then it's going to implicate the lower back,
Mm.
Hmm.
and there's going to be pain.
Mm.
Also, there's a unconsciousness to the feet positioning, because you know me, I always go back to the feet.
Right.
So the feet are either ducky position or the toes, or it's, the toes are coming toward each other. So with both those positions, it's implicating the hips and the lower back, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking also is that, when you're at home, let's just, I'm just putting out a hypothetical here. So you have somebody who works in, let's say, a manufacturing plant. They're moving around, they're walking, they're often on a forklift or whatever it is, but they're not sitting on a couch for 6 hours.
Right.
So you're at home, right? You got your, you have a TV, let's say, and you flip on the TV, and before you know it, you're sitting there for 2 hours. Now, when you get out of that couch, you've got to engage muscles that have been dormant for a long period of time.
Yeah, shorten.
And that's not going to happen during a work day necessarily. And again, I'm only giving a hypothetical, but
David, if I can interrupt you for a sec?
Yeah,
the core, at least my core principles of posture are: first you align, then you stabilize and or engage, and then move or stretch. And most people, whether they're at home or wherever they are, I've got to stretch. So they're stretching out of alignment and out of engagement.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you,
no,
but
it's a good point.
I really feel that's the meat of the physical part of people being quarantined at home, and they're not breathing.
Right.
So they're not, because I think because of the stress and because of the sitting without thinking about their posture. So there's no emphasis on the breath of opening up the chest.
Right. I actually have a question that just came in. Do we think we got a lot with that just now? But I want to definitely jump on these before they pile up. We have a person here called in. They said a very important topic. Are there any types of exercises that are not very good for posture? Or is it really only a question of a person's use of posture? What do you think about that, Amy? Do you get that?
I did get it, and that's a really good question. I believe it's the use of the posture, because if your feet are aligned, you're engaging your abs, you're opening up your chest, and you're lifting your eyes so that your eyes are forward or going, at least not straining the neck. Then any type of movement is, I feel, is all right. What do you feel about that?
No, I think it's the same thing. What I would say is that I think a lot of times, what makes exercise so important is that most of us are so disconnected today. And when people move, they're really not aware of leverage. I used to study, one of my first disciplines was judo. And I was never a big guy. I was a small kid, but very powerful. And what I learned was that I didn't have to be the biggest guy in order to create force and to be able to control a situation. It was about understanding leverage and how to, where is my ability to exert force or stabilize the greatest. So it's something that I grew up with. Also, with gymnastics and so forth. I think a lot of times people they don't understand where that is. So when you're saying about stabilizing, getting everything together, then moving through, I think that's really important. I don't think there are any bad exercises. I just want to say that exercise is something that's important because I think that helps to create that awareness. You know, and it's something I think today that actually needs to be more created, cultivated, because we just don't move around the same ways. It's not like a lot more manual labor work at one time, which was done, or people, you know, just moving around and doing a lot more physical things. We are more and more and more sitting, which that disconnect with the breathing and all the other things that you spoke about earlier, it just makes it very difficult for us.
Yeah, I would, and I'll jump in on that question too. I think that there's the question of, are there any bad exercises? I think that if you're in poor alignment, axial loading, which is top-down loading on the spine, can actually be very detrimental.
Right.
And I also think that it's really important to mention that the stabilizing muscles must be not only engaged, they must be strong enough in order to withstand the force. So your example of manual labor. So you're doing manual labor and you're not really even thinking about it, but you're using muscles that are stabilizers and you're using muscles that are primary movers.
Right.
So you're using these muscles in concert. Most of us don't do that.
Right.
We use muscles in isolation.
Right.
Most of the time. And I feel that if you were to have stabilizing muscles that were strong enough and also engaged, but strong enough to sort of withstand the force with or in concert with the primary movers, then yes, you could probably do any type of movement. But there are issues of scoliosis.
Right.
You know, there are other orthopedic type issues
where
you would have to consult a physician or physical therapist to decide whether or not that exercise was appropriate.
Correct.
One of the things, something that I was going to say was that really leads into something that I try to do with all my clients is education.
Yes.
Is to really educate them that it's important to know their own anatomy. If they know their own anatomy, then know thyself.
Right.
It's really it's extremely important.
Right.
So that they know, well, my left knee is weak. Well, it could be that they were born with a left knee that was weak. So that if they know that, then there's way to strengthen and make sure they're balanced, so that the symmetry and that neutral posture that you were talking about too is extremely important. So important to know your own anatomy. Education.
And one thing I'll mention, and again, this is general to fitness. It seems to me, and I've been in the field for a while, is that fitness is one of the only professions where people feel like they know exactly what they're talking about.
Right.
So you would never, ever have in accounting someone say, "Oh yeah, I'll whip your taxes out for you in 2 seconds." You just wouldn't. But in fitness, because there's so much information, bombarding everybody with magazine covers and this and videos, blah, 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 all this stuff. Everybody knows what the hell they're doing. And you bring up a really good point, Amy, which is education. And most people, they don't take the time to become educated about their own body because they're just going to follow the video. They're just going to read the magazine. And you would never do your taxes by reading a popular magazine. It's like one of the only professions I've ever seen where everybody is everyone's a savant. Everyone is I do this for myself. I do that. I get it. I understand. But you really do need to know your own body.
Absolutely.
Your own limitations and your own abilities. And then you work from there.
Real quick on top of that, and then I want to jump on another because we're getting hit with a lot of questions, is that one of those perfect examples is that if someone has a short torso or a long torso and talking about a squat, the range of motion that what that torso is going to have to do in order to displace that vertical load into the hip, which is then going to go into the knee and into the heel of that foot, is going to look different. What you see, you're looking at a magazine and you see someone with a longer torso, shorter leg, the torso is going to be able to maintain a more erect position. That's just the way it is. People that tend to have a shorter torso, longer leg, there's going to be more of a forward lean with the torso to offset the load. And people sometimes look at that. I would see trainers and they say, that's wrong, that's wrong. No. You got to understand the setup of that individual. That person's leverage system is different than the other person's leverage system. And if you don't understand these things about the body, this is what over time, you're trying to take something, you're trying to turn a short torso into a long torso biomechanical move, and it's not going to work. You're going to break that body down over time because the grinding that's taking place at the joint is not what the body wants to do. So, Amy, again, definitely, amazing. Let me jump on this real quick. First of all, somebody said thank you, Amy, for that. And we have someone saying hi. Thanks for turning into today's episode. Great questions. Oh, that's not us. That's us. Oh yeah. They said, is there any exercises that are safe, especially for the neck, that over time has been compressed due to age? So a little bit, I think, Dave, about what you were talking about a little bit earlier actually answered that question. So if we have someone where we have some compression or maybe like a C curve to the spine, this is going to impact how you approach vertical loads. You know, so you want to definitely again be careful with those.
For sure.
And another thing, no standing on heads. No, it's not a good thing to do.
Jump on it, Amy.
If you don't know your anatomy extremely well, and for an older adult, where that question comes into mind, and so many yoga teachers and other fitness teachers will have older adults stand on their heads, and over time, there will be injury to the neck. So,
yeah. And this is one of those things that I always hear. Yoga instructors always want to get into these inversions, and do these these stands and all of this. And many years ago, many years, when I first started playing football, we all had to do wrestler's bridge. Wrestler's bridge was an exercise where we bridged up and you rolled on your head. You rolled on your neck.
Yeah.
You remember wrestler's bridge? No. And then they cut it out. They eliminated it from one of the exercises that we would be able to do or had to do in school. You weren't allowed to do wrestler's bridge anymore. I still know athletes that still do it, but it's not something that at one time it was prevalent. Everyone did wrestler's bridge. Right. And then they were like, it causes, compression, the possibilities of herniation, slip disc, all of this stuff. Yeah.
But I think the question that this caller had kind of goes back to what we were talking about, which is really develop the muscles around the neck. So watch out for axial load. You're not going to stand on your head. I agree with that.
Right.
But I do think there are things you can do that are very basic and very easy in order to strengthen those muscles, like the levators.
Right.
And those can be done with isometric holds.
Yeah.
These are not beach going exercises. These are not really like exciting exercises.
Right.
But they are isometric holds where you can push your head against your hand to one side, then push your head again to the other side, then push your forehead, then push behind your head. These will eventually strengthen those muscles where they'll be able to handle more force without any kind of axial loading.
Right.
Without any kind of top-down loading.
There's a great exercise if you interlace your fingers and put your hand behind your head. If you have the flexibility to do that, and then push your head into your hand and your hand into your head. So that really strengthens those muscles.
Good.
And it's much safer, and it actually, you get much more strength than standing on your head.
Right. And let's not forget old-fashioned shrugs. Shrugging can be, not only with the arms hanging straight down, but shrugging also with the arms overhead, which is what a lot of people don't do, because that works that upper trapezius a lot more. So there are many ways. We want that scapular retraction. Not only just moving it back, shrugging it down, shrugging it up. And you're going to get all of those middle, lower trapezius, upper trapezius areas that come into play, and then going in with the isometrics to really help to strengthen the neck.
Yeah, I think those are really good.
I like for older adults the best.
Yeah. Definitely not standing on the not upside down there. Not smart. Not a good idea.
So I have a question that we had written in a little while ago. So here's somebody who's been sitting for a long time due to their job, and sometimes only on the lower right side of their back hurts. Sometimes the upper back hurts across the scapula. Not really conscious of how they're sitting or they're standing when they're working. Is there a proper way that one should sit when they're working? And I'll give a personal sort of anecdotal comment to this, is that, as we get older, we tend to, it's funny, the other day, I'm in the kitchen, I'm like, ow. And my son says, what's the matter? I'm like, it's just, I'm getting old. I mean, you just get these like, that doesn't feel that great. So I think, ergonomics is a really, really important part of proper posture and
right.
proper alignment. So what are the proper ways of sitting while doing work or while at work?
Feet flat on the floor.
Okay.
Parallel. And if for some reason your feet don't touch the floor, put some books or blocks or something so that your feet are flat on the floor and they're parallel. Because the reason the feet are parallel, particularly for a worker that's at the desk, is it implicates the knees as well as the hips. The song, the leg bones connected to the hip bone.
Right.
You want the femur into the acetabulum and to fit snugly. So, and again, as I said before, you don't want your knees to be higher than your hips when you're sitting. You want to, if you can, you want a straight back chair, and you might want to put a ball or some kind of support behind your back and between your shoulder blades to help you sit up tall, so that you're to engage the abs and to open the chest. Why are we doing that? So we can breathe easier. And then lastly, of course, we want the head to be in a comfortable place on the spine, so the head's not pushing forward.
Right.
And particularly when you're working, when I'm looking at a client the first time, I'm looking how they're sleeping, how they're working, what's their, how they're watching TV. And usually I have to raise their computer so that they're looking straight at the computer. They don't have to look down. As well as the keyboard, making sure that the keyboard's proper so they're not sitting like this. So for me, that's really the proper way to sit when you're working.
I got a question. I'm sorry, Dave, but I want to ask you real quick. I agree with you on that, because I work with quite a few artists, and we had to change how they draw and where they do their work in order for everything to the body just recovers faster. Sleep is better. Everything is better. But when you said about the feet parallel, what about if somebody had a lateral rotation to the feet? Would you want that person's toes, in other words, for them to be straight aligned with the knee? Or if there was a lateral rotation of the ankle, it really doesn't matter?
No, I think it does matter.
Okay.
I believe it does matter. Okay. And they might want to stabilize the foot in the beginning to help it go into a proper posture.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel that they're going to put stress on the knee and the hip if the foot is not in its proper place.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking about ergonomics while sitting and working, and most of what we're talking about is using a laptop or, I guess, a desktop. You know, you can still raise your desktop, right? But what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
I
becoming
can't.
text neck, and people are getting text neck. They're getting a lot of pain
Yeah.
and you know, not necessarily injury, but overstretching
Yeah.
of the posterior neck muscles, and that's, you know, and that's happening a lot in younger people because they're constantly on their phone. They constantly have to be looking down. So short of putting this thing in our eyes, you know, they're going to have to do this. There's no other way to do it unless they're doing this, which most people are not doing. So it's something to think about.
Yeah. I think also too that, I mean, there's so many things that are just reaction based. You know, the phone rings, you pick it up. You know, it's just so quick. It's so fast. This is where I think we really delve into the training, you know, with exercise, because there's so many things that you're going to do on a daily basis that you just can't move fluidly, right, at the pace that you need to move and have everything work, because you're going to be trying to think about it. People are not going to think about it, you know. So, you know, now going in and, you know, coming across someone like Amy, getting the proper instruction as to how they should be sitting, moving, all of those other things, you know, because we know there's so many more things that are outside of your training facility that they're going to do that's going to break these things down, that they need to come to a facility like that and to engage in the type of exercises that are going to help the body to stay resilient, you know, and improve in the ways that they want, and to increase the longevity of the body.
Yeah.
I'd like to say one more thing in terms of basic core principles, and it doesn't matter what exercise that you're doing, is the importance of symmetry versus asymmetry.
Right.
Because I always have my clients come back to symmetry, come back to neutral.
Right.
So if they're doing a lunge on the right side of their body, before they do the lunge to the left side of their body, they have to come to a neutral standing pose.
Right. Right.
That's really important for balance, as well as the stress on the muscles or joints, because we're not total symmetrical beings.
Right.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. Especially in a lunge, because with a lunge, the propensity or the likelihood of doing that with poor form is extremely high. You've got to place your foot perfectly. You've got to bend at your knee, and especially as you start to fatigue, your form, you know, goes down the toilet. So coming back to neutral makes you reset.
Right.
And then, you know, and then perform the activity again.
You know, and interestingly enough, you know, in powerlifting, so a lot of times, you know, with we'll use a deadlift as an example, which is a lift, for those of you that don't know, is you address the bar by coming close to the bar is close to the shin. You're going to bend down from the knees and the hips. You're going to hold onto the bar, and you're going to stand up with the bar straight. The goal is to make the bar travel in a straight line. That setting down on every repetition is an opportunity to reset.
Yeah.
You know, power athletes, you see, and this is what I tell people, sometimes I'll have a model that I'm working with, and they're like, why are we talking about powerlifting? You know, I can see they're trying to figure it out.
Right.
But powerlifting is the extreme of moving a massive amount of weight, that the human body is going to undertake this job. It's going to move this massive amount of weight, and it's going to do it without injuring itself. So what happens is that powerlifters practice on moving massive weight as quickly and as forcefully as they can, and they want to move it well, which means they're always focusing on it. It's a form-based movement. A lot of, you know, different sports are, but that one's it represents an extreme in load. And when you're moving extreme loads, you have extreme injury that can come along with that. Sure. So understanding how to, so always pausing, and when you're talking about coming back to neutral, you know, deadlifting and pausing at the bottom of the deadlift allows the athlete to come back to neutral. Both feet planted. When I start to drive, the abdomen is pulled in. The back is in a neutral position. Head is neutral. The drive is coming through the heel. Both legs up strong. Get to the top. Retract. Exhale. So there's a lot of things that are happening. I love training. It's man's physical and mental connection really at one of its highest levels, because you're seeing amazing things being done. A lot of people don't look at it that way, but for me, you're seeing amazing things taking place on a physical and a neurological, mental level. It's amazing. It's good.
That's great. Yeah. So let's kind of talk about some practicality here. So what would be, Amy, 3 just kind of basic, real easy exercises one can do just to kind of, get started with improving their posture?
I like to have people look in the mirror.
Okay.
And naked.
Okay.
And really look at their body. That's again the education, knowing your own anatomy, know thyself.
Right.
So look in the mirror naked, and then breathing. So watching where the breath is coming from. Mm-hmm. Is it coming just from the chest?
Right.
Is it coming from the lower
Diaphragm.
belly?
Right.
Because that's our life force.
Right.
Absolutely.
In whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
So the breath. For the lower body extremities, I like to look again at hamstring quad combinations, and with the feet in a good neutral position, and you're aligning, then you're stabilizing, engaging, and then stretch. And then for the third exercise, we're only limiting it to 3 here. For the upper body extremities, corner wall push-ups.
I think it's a great idea.
It's a good exercise. I'm thinking of exercises for older adults.
Yeah.
That corner wall push-up where their head, neck, and upper body, they're strengthening all the upper back muscles, particularly the rhomboids, which are closest to the heart. So those are 3.
That's great. And one thing I want to say about the breathing, because you mentioned standing in front of a mirror and seeing where you're breathing, and just to give our listeners a little bit of a visual, some people breathe from their belly, known as diaphragmatic breathing, where we breathe into our belly, and our belly extends as we bring the air in, and it kind of contracts as we push the air out. Some people breathe from their shoulders. Now, you may have seen or may know someone who is a sort of rapid breather. I know that in physiology, there's a pulmonary disorder known as COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And the problem is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the lungs, and it causes an individual to actually lift from their shoulders because it's the only way for them to get the air in. They have to expand their rib cage by lifting here.
Right.
That takes a lot of work, and it's very inefficient. So your point about breathing is well taken, and I think learning how to do proper diaphragmatic breathing is extremely important.
Extremely.
In anything, but I think that's an excellent exercise to be able to do.
As far as to jump in on that, in the strength training, you'll find athletes that are doing high repetition squats. In order to get those really high repetition squats, the diaphragm breathing is very, very important. So you do want to breathe from the belly. If you're taking in that oxygen and it's only coming from the lungs, you're going to limit your capacity to work closer to 100%. You're not going to get near there, and that doesn't mean you're not working hard. You are absolutely working hard. You're just not working optimal, and it's definitely something that you want to try and incorporate and to learn. With that being said, I want to just jump in on something. I think we already hit on it, but when it says, what is proper standing position when resting? Should toes be pointed forward? Should they be in a V shape? my feet are beginning to hurt, and I feel like I'm not standing correctly anymore. And this is someone telling us that, do the toes have to point out, 10 and 2 o'clock, should they be straight on, the feet tend to hurt. I think that could be a lot of different things, to be very honest, but Amy, what do you think about that one?
Again, feet parallel, unless there are other implications that we don't know about. And what this person could do would take a block or a book to help them keep their feet parallel. And they can also use a block in between their knees or their thighs. And that will also, because they don't want to hyperextend the knees. Right. Hyperextending the knees will have implications, injury to the lower back. And that's a biggie. So no hyperextended knees. But again, sore feet, also lifting and spreading their toes with the feet, the soles of the feet on the floor. Putting their feet in hot water and then cold water, hot water and then cold water. Rolling a frozen Coke bottle along the soles of their feet. It could be something like plantar fasciitis.
Right.
So all of these little techniques are good techniques for feet issues.
Interestingly, I used to get a lot of security guys, and they were standing all the time, in the nightclubs, and they would come in and they have a lot of foot issues, So we would look at things like, you're looking at the thickness of the sock, how much room is in the shoe. The foot inside the shoe. What is the quality of the shoe? Is the sole of the shoe broken down? Because I have friends that work for big shoe companies, and a lot of time your shoe is actually, it looks good, but the insole you can't see is already started to rot away. So this changes the pitch of the shoe, which rolls stress on the bottom of the feet, and we see the plantar fasciitis, and we see these things happen. So it's feet are very important, and I'm from I'm Belizean. And in Central America, we walk a lot barefoot, right? And most of the training I always saw my dad do, and my dad's a bodybuilder, was barefoot. The training that I started off with for many years of my life was all barefoot. I don't think enough people have that real association with being barefoot and moving around moving around dynamically.
Well, a third of the nerves in the body are at the bottom of the feet, and those nerves go up to the lumbar plexus.
Right.
So if your feet are not in a proper posture, then it's going to again implicate the lower back.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome information. And just wanted to say, so if you have other questions for Amy, all of her contact information is in the show notes. And I wanted to say something, Stu, about that. That's a really interesting point you made, is that most people don't have the experience of sort of being barefoot. But what's interesting is about 10 years ago, Vibram came out with those gorilla feet shoes.
Yeah.
My wife still makes fun of me for wearing. I've been wearing them about 8 years. I wear them every time I exercise. And they're definitely an acquired taste. I mean, they're not easy to get into initially. But once you do, they're very comfortable.
Right.
And it's very interesting what's happened to me over the course of years that I've been using them. I have much more awareness of my position in space.
Yeah.
I think balance is a lot better, coordination, things like that.
Yeah.
Than wearing like bulky shoes,
They desensitize you. The shoe desensitizes you.
Absolutely.
It takes you away from the earth. I mean, before those became popular back in the 70s and early 80s, a lot of bodybuilders, and one of the first guy was Samir Bannout, former Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I remember.
And Samir was using surfing shoes.
Like water shoes.
Right, water shoes. Very, very thin, and he was using it. And when I started to notice, I mean, but I always trained like that. That's the way how my dad trained me. You get more pliability to the soleus muscle. So you find that your flexibility, you know, the heel, what bodybuilding they might call heel cords, but or the Achilles, but we're gonna say your soleus. You get more mobility in that area. Those things also free up a lot of tension in the knee. And a lot of times people are like, you know, I get all kinds of, from pro athlete to non-pro, come in and they're like, oh, I don't squat, I can't squat, my knees hurt. I watch them squat, and I'm like, take your shoes off. I have them start to squat, and then you're like, you need mobility there. They're like, oh, but I'm taking yoga and this and that. I'm like, listen, you know, you're when you're squatting and you're going down, the area's so tight, you're stopping. You know, you need to start to go into that area, that uncharted area that you're not used to. And having shoes that are thin like that or doing that kind of work, man, it can be very, you know, everything is just a tool. It doesn't mean that you have to use it forever, you know.
Right.
But by sometimes incorporating these things, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. So I have another question. We'll throw at you, Amy, and this is someone who is a 44-year-old opera singer who slipped and fell on her back after performance about 6 years ago. Since the fall, she finds it challenging to straighten her back when she's waking up from a night's rest. She's gotten MRIs and X-rays. They've come back.
You guys keep going. I'm sorry. They're going to jump and fix my audio a little bit.
Yeah, okay, you got it.
You guys go ahead.
Okay, so the MRIs and the X-rays show no negative or soft tissue. Negative for any soft tissue or skeletal injury, but this is a person who's 30 pounds overweight. So, is it the fall? Is it the weight? Is it a combo? You know, what do you think? How can we have it?
I think I believe it's a combo, definitely. Again, without observing her, assessing her, it's, you know, it's unfair for me to start giving specific exercise. But sure. Again, I would say, again, core principles of posture: align, you know, stabilize, move, stretch, never cross her legs, you know, lift.
Why not? Why do you say that?
Engage her abs.
Yeah.
You know, and keep the knee, no hyperextending of the knees. You know, perhaps, you know, she's doing things that are, you know, exaggerating what happened in the fall.
Right. Yeah. And the overweight part is very interesting. So we carry our weight in two places. We either carry it in our belly or we carry it in our butt, right? We're either apple shaped or we're pear shaped, right? But regardless, that overweight that overweight issue is going to place stress on the knees, right? Not and obviously on the low back, but it may cause that individual to hyperextend because you're not finding a lot of overweight people who are bending at their knees. They're just right. So by locking the knees, you now cause more of a stable, so to speak, posture, if you want to call it that, but more stability. And that can lead to a lot of tightness in the hamstrings and then cause a low back pain.
And also, David, if they're overweight, here's the belly. Yeah. And how is the feet position? It's going to be ducky.
Yes.
It's going to be ducky because it's more difficult for them to get in a neutral position.
Right. And they need a wider base of support so that the body automatically goes out.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amy.
And that's going to implicate the lower back.
Why about not the crossing? When you said crossing the legs,
she shouldn't cross her legs. You said.
Because it can implicate the hip joint.
Okay.
So in other words, you know, you keep and there are many people with hip and back issues that will sit down and automatically cross their legs.
Right.
Yes.
You know, so would you say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but would you say it's almost like maybe opening up the labrum of the hip a little bit too much because of the crossing. And what happens over time, the labrum, that femur, that socket area becomes a little bit weak. Would that be?
That's brilliant, Stu. Because I never thought of that in terms of the implication of the labrum. Yes, totally. I think totally. Thank you.
And unless it is that you're crossing on both sides, which most people don't do, because they have flexibility on one side.
Right.
Unless you're doing that, it could cause, depending upon how you're crossing your legs. So you'll see a lot of guys will put their ankle on their other knee. That causes a lot of external rotation of the hip.
Right.
You'll see a lot of people like slide to the side and then throw their leg over. But again, that's putting whether that's not necessarily the QL, but more the gluteus medius, that might cause a lot of stress on that. And also low back muscles are not made to go this way.
Right.
And it's also shortening one side of the torso.
Right.
So you're immediately causing an imbalance.
Yeah.
So then what about some of these yoga practices, I'm sorry, that have you cross your legs and sit for long periods, or meditation? When they would meditate and then cross, because I know some people that have extreme, like sacrum pain across the lower portion of the back because they're sitting for like literally hours and meditating, and I'm just like, it's not for your particular body. You're doing the wrong thing for your body. You're not listening to the cues that you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, to get into a true lotus position, you need tremendous hip flexibility to be able to put one leg up and then the other leg in. And what I would say is that if you are meditating and you feel like you have to sit like that, you don't have to sit like that.
Right.
You literally, meditation is about here. It's not about how you're sitting.
Right.
So you could sit in a chair and meditate.
Right.
So yeah,
it's back to important to know your own anatomy.
Know yourself.
Education.
Love
know thyself.
Love that, Amy. And that's what is unique to each individual. One of the things that get me the most is when people think it has to be like this. No, it doesn't have to be like that. It has to be the way your body needs it to be in order for it to work correctly and for the body to feel like it's getting what it's supposed to get. If the equation is coming out wrong, you're not doing it right.
Right.
Fix it. Common sense. Absolutely. Common sense. Yeah. Oh, Amy.
You got another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see. I got.
We'll wrap up in just a couple of minutes.
Okay. I'm gonna throw this one out. My name is Brittany. She's 24 years old. She's been athletic her whole life. Now involved in CrossFit. It says, when I'm pushing the weights up, I feel my posture is horrible. But when I look around, I see most people with the similar form as myself. Does this posture really matter during my lifts?
Yes. Yes.
Resounding yes.
Thank you, Brittany. I want to say that first. Thank you for saying that I wanted. Yeah, it matters, doesn't it, Amy?
It's huge. Again, look around and there's bad posture and good posture. And you want to do what's best for your own body with the core principles. Align, engage, and then move. It's not too hard to remember that. And if you do that, I really feel that there's basically hardly any injury.
Right.
That you get injured when something starts to bother you. It's when you don't align with the way your body, anatomy, and you're not stabilizing.
Right.
So you're in an imbalanced situation. You're going to get hurt.
Right.
You're going to
Yeah. One thing I would say too, CrossFit is a very specific type of exercise. It's usually there's a lot of speed involved. Whether or not the weights are heavy, it doesn't really matter. But the speed will eventually equal fatigue, and once there's fatigue, that's when you start to see posture
breakdown in form.
Really start to it becomes negatively affected. And I'll give a perfect example. Burpees, which are not my favorite exercise, but
stop it, David. You love burpees.
What ends up happening is once you start, because now you're standing, then you're in a plank, maybe you do a push-up, and then you go back to standing. Now you do 10 of those and you're going to start to fatigue. So the muscles that you have to engage to get back into that sort of reset are going to be tired. The next time you go into the plank's not going to be as straight as it was on the first one. Then you're doing a push-up, but you're not really able to do a full push-up. Now you've got to get your feet back under you. And, those kinds of things. So now you're using a lot of lower back muscle. You're using a lot of muscle that's not really supposed to be used in that movement. And so when it comes to CrossFit in a younger person, what I would say is exactly what you said, Amy. Focus on your posture. Get that down. Then do the exercise. Don't go through it as fast as you can. And next guy and make it a competition, because if you do that over the course of years, you're going to break yourself down.
What I want to add to that is a lot of that is having those muscles fire in the right patterns. Firing A, B, C, D. Because if you could do a really good push-up, that doesn't mean you could do a really good push-up, jump right up into a squat. Absolutely. You're taking 2-3 movements and combining them in one. There has to be a significant enough understanding as the biomechanics of each of those movements and how they need to be executed rhythmically in order for them to flow properly.
And if you look at the origin of the burpee is basically, like you said, it's taking 3 to 4 exercises, putting them in order where you have to do them quickly. The idea of a burpee is to get a cardiovascular, or what you would call like a high intensity interval training type of workout. In these 4 exercises. So your heart rate's going to go up, your blood pressure is going to go up, you're going to be tired. But the fact is that you're right. If your patterning is not correct, your alignment's not correct, your posture's not correct, the chance of you injuring yourself during that is much, much higher.
So then is really the answer are we really saying then it's not about the exhaustion, but it's about the execution? Again, we come back to what we always talk about, quality over quantity. We want to make sure that the execution of the movements are correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Amy, we lost your video somehow, but we'll try to bring you back. Your video may have just, there
you are.
Here I am.
So, listen, we're going to wrap up. I think this was a fantastic conversation, really needed, very practical, a lot of really good information. Amy, thank you so much for being on our show. And we'd love to have you back.
Yes, Amy. Thank you.
And maybe next time we'll talk about something really specific, as opposed to something general related to posture. But this was great. And I think, people really enjoyed it. You're looking over there, Stu. Do you have another question?
We do have questions, but maybe we save them for next time. We bring Amy back and we rock it out.
That would be great. And like I said, Amy's contact information is in the show notes, so you can see her on Twitter and on Facebook, and you can even, I think her email is there. So there's definitely ways to contact her if you want to send her questions. That would be great too. So again, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Pleasure, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you. Fun. It's really fun.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So, all right. So until next week, when we tackle another issue related to health, fitness, or wellness, my name's David Spear for Stu Burton. This is the Training Edge with Dave and Sue. Sue. I called you Sue.
It's all right. It's all right. You can call me Sue. Call me Sue.
Training Edge with Dave and Sue. And
all right. All right.
We can't wait to see
Only
you guys.
Dave can do that. No one else. All right.
All right. Take care,
everybody.
Everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good.